Hi, and welcome to our tutorial on using the CNC Router. Today, we will learn how to use VCarve Pro as well as the ShopBot desktop router. Our first step is to open VCarve Pro and load our file. This software will open .crv, DXF, DWG, EPS, AI, and PDF files. Today we will open up the file called Box. This will bring us to the Job Setup window. Here we can adjust the size of our stock material, choose our XY datum position, change our unit of measurement, and scale our design with our job size. We will start by adjusting our job size. The stock that I have is 11 by 17 3/4 by 0.733 inches. It is extremely important that your Z-axis measurement is as accurate as possible, so we suggest using our digital calipers. Make sure that you input your stock size in the correct orientation for the job that you would like to perform. The XY datum position is the location that the machine will use as its starting point. For this job, we will use the center of the board as our starting point. Since we have already inputted the dimensions of our stock, there is no need to change the unit size. But, if you prefer metric to imperial, it is below the XY datum position to change it. Finally, there is design scaling. If you use precise measurements with your design, do not click this checkbox, as it will rescale everything. Finally, click OK. This will bring you to the main screen for this software. To move the location of your project, simply select it, and use the directional arrows on your keypad to move it over wherever you would like. There are quite a few options in this menu, but for today, we will stick to the basics. If you have questions about these other options, please speak to a SparkPlace employee. Click on the Toolpath tab in the top right corner, and then pin it in its location using the thumbtack icon. This will keep this tab open at all times. If you need to make any changes to the stock, or you just want to reconfirm what you have already input, the Material Setup section will allow you to do so. Now we will talk about the three most basic types of toolpaths. Profile toolpaths will allow you to cut on or next to your design. For this piece, the two outside lines are designed for profile toolpaths. Pocket toolpaths create areas where large amounts of material will be removed within the boundaries of a shape. The interior sections of this design are set up for pockets. Finally, there are drilling toolpaths. These are simple plunges into the material in a straight line. The small circles in the corner will be drilling toolpaths. When you are creating toolpaths, it makes the most sense for most jobs to start at the lowest cut depth and work your way down. So we will begin with our drilling toolpaths. Click on the outline of each of your circles to select it. Hold Shift to select multiple objects at once. Once all are selected, click the Drilling Toolpaths option. This new window on the right side is the basic toolpath window. All of the toolpaths will look similar to this one, but with a few different options. Starting with cutting depths, we want to start at the top of the board and then cut into it 1/4 of an inch. So we set the start depth to 0, which represents the top of the board, and then set the cutting depth to 0.25. Tool is the next section, and it allows us to adjust which tool we are using. For this job, we will only be using a 1/4 inch straight bit. Make sure to adjust your feeds and speeds for the material that you are using. Peck Drilling is a setting that uses multiple small plunges to drill out the hole. This is helpful for deep cuts and for extremely durable material. For this job, this won't be necessary. The Dwell setting is helpful for ensuring a clean bottom of the cut, but that also shouldn't be necessary for this job. After all of that, hit Calculate. This brings us to the preview window, which will appear after you set every toolpath. Click Reset Preview, and then Preview All Toolpaths. This will show you your current finished toolpaths in the order displayed in the Toolpaths list. You can use your mouse to look around the model, left-click to rotate around your piece, and right-click to adjust your zoom. Once finished with the preview, click Close, and then click on the Box tab at the top left to return to your design window. Now we will start on the pockets. Once again, we click to select, then we click on the Pocket Toolpath button. We will again set the cutting depth, this time to 0.5 inches, and then select the 1/4 inch straight bit. The main change on this screen is the clear pocket section. Here we can choose between offset and raster. Offset will cut the pocket using concentric shapes, while raster will use parallel paths along the x-axis to cut through the stock. Along with those choices is the cut direction. Climb moves in a generally clockwise motion, while conventional moves counterclockwise. These selections are personal preference for most simple jobs, so we will just select an offset climb as our method of clearing the pocket. Click Calculate. Run through your preview again. Notice that the drilling path goes first, and then the pocket afterwards. Once you are finished with the preview, click Close in the Preview Toolpaths tab and return to your project screen. Finally, we are ready to cut our outside boundaries. Select your outside lines, then click the Profile Toolpaths button. We want to cut all the way through our material on this cut, so we will set our cut depth slightly deeper than the material thickness. This will ensure that the cut goes all the way through our material. I would suggest going no deeper than 1/8 of an inch. Next, we will select the 1/4 inch bit. This brings us to the Machine Vectors tab. Here, we can choose where we would like the bit to follow along the line. Outside will remove material next to the line along the outside of your selection. Inside will cut along the interior of your selection, while on will cut directly on top of the line. Once more, we can also choose between climb and conventional. We can also set an offset and designate start points. For this job, we will use an outside climb. The last pass selection will allow us to create a separate last pass from our job and select a specific allowance for this last pass. This will not be necessary on this job. Finally, there are a few tabs near the bottom, but for most simple jobs, we will just worry about the tabs option. These tabs provide a connection between your stock and the finished piece. This is required if you are cutting all the way through, or you may damage your finished piece, the machine, or both. Click the checkbox for Add Tabs to Toolpath. We can adjust the length and thickness of these tabs, and we will set ours to 1/4 of an inch. Then click Edit Tabs. To place a tab, left-click on your path where you would like the tab to go. If you need to remove a tab, simply click on it again. You may also move a tab by left-clicking and holding the tab. For ease of removal, we suggest placing tabs in straight, easy-to-access sections of the path. For this job, we will place 4 tabs on each section that will be cut out. We can also have the software auto-generate tabs to our parameters if we click on the settings at the top right. When you are finished, click Close, and then click Calculate. You will receive a warning letting you know that you're cutting deeper than your material thickness. Double check the maximum tool depth in comparison to your material thickness, and then click OK. Run through your preview one more time. Notice that we now have two pieces almost completely cut through the stock, held together by our small tabs. These small tabs are where we have the drill and pocket tool paths cut first, to minimize the amount of stress these tabs have to take. Once finished, click Close. We will now save our toolpaths. Click the Save Toolpaths button, and then click the checkbox next to Toolpath List. This will select all of your toolpaths that were already created. If you need to adjust the order that the toolpaths are run, simply click and drag them into place. Finally, verify that the post processor is labeled ShopBot TC and the unit of measurement you had previously set, and then click Save Toolpaths to File. Name it something easy to remember, and then hit Save. Now we have to change the bit that is currently in the CNC router. To do this, open up the drawer beneath the router and grab the two large wrenches. Place one wrench slightly above the chuck of the machine, and one wrench directly on the chuck, and then twist them in opposite directions until they break loose. Once properly loosened, you should be able to rotate the chuck by hand and slowly remove it. This will give you access to the bit, which can be removed either by hand or, if it refuses to come out, with pliers. If pliers prove necessary, please be careful during the removal of the bit. Once the old bit has been removed, you can insert the new bit into the chuck. Make sure that the bit is at the top of the chuck, and then reattach the chuck to the router. Once you are unable to turn the chuck by hand, make sure to use the wrenches to tighten it snugly. Do not over-tighten the chuck. If you do, it will be impossible to remove and take the machine out of action for several days. Now we will need to lock down our stock. To do so, there are two methods. The first method uses small clamps to lock down the stock onto our wasteboard. These clamps slide into the aluminum channel and then are tightened down to lock our stock into place. If you are solely using these clamps to lock the material down, make sure that you put them in multiple locations along your stock. I highly suggest at least 4 locations be locked down using this method. The second method of attaching your stock to your wasteboard is using a drill. First, you will need to cut pilot holes into your stock so that it does not split while you are screwing it into the wasteboard. Make sure to use the properly sized drill bit for your pilot holes. Next, attach the stock to the wasteboard using screws. This should lock the stock into place and prevent it from moving during the routing process. Once you are finished locking the material down, it is suggested to give it a good shake to make sure that it doesn't move anywhere during the routing process. Now we will find our home position. On this job, we use the center of our material as the home position, so we will measure it out and mark the central location as accurately as we can. At times like these, it's important to remember the old woodworker saying, "Measure twice, cut once." This central location will be where we are moving to in the next step. Now is a good time to verify that the spindle safety lock is in the up position. As the machine will start moving now, it is important to close the lid on the machine. Next, turn the machine on by flipping up the red switch and then flipping the toggle switch underneath of it. This red switch will act as the emergency shutoff button in the event of an emergency. We will now go back to the computer and open up ShopBot 3. This software will give us direct control over the machine. First, click on the yellow box on the right side of the screen. This will allow us to move the tool. The buttons on this screen act very similar to a joystick. You can move it forwards, backwards, and side to side. Note the numbers changing in the position window. You can also lower and raise the tool in this screen as well. Using these options, move the center of the drill bit over top of the center of the stock of your material. When you are close to the central location, click on the Fixed button, which will allow it to move at a much slower rate and is much easier to control during the fine movement process. Once you are over top of the central location, click 0 axes and then click the X, Y, and Z checkboxes. Notice that the X, Y, and Z locations now read 0. Close out of the keypad section that we've just been working in. The final step in this process is to arm the spindle. To arm the spindle, grab the spindle key, which is located in the gray box above the computer, and then take the spindle key and place it into the key slot below the power switch. Turn the key to the right to fully arm the spindle. At this point, the machine is now ready to run our job, but it is very important to talk to a SparkPlace representative before you do so. The SparkPlace representative will run through this checklist with you. This checklist is designed to ensure your safety, the machine's safety, as well as the completion of your job. Finally, click on File, and then Part File Load. Find where you have saved your file, and then double-click on it. This will open up the Fill-in command sheet. For this job and many other simple jobs, we shouldn't have to adjust anything here, and all we should need to do is press Start. Once you press Start, the machine will raise itself up 1/2 inch. This is to allow it to have free movement during the moving process. Note that while the machine is moving, I am unable to move my mouse from the Stop button. Once the machine is finished moving, several pop-ups will appear. Verify that you have the correct tool in, and the Z-axis is in the correct location, and then hit OK. This will bring us to the final pop-up. Once you are ready, please hit OK. The machine will begin to run through the steps for your job. It is very important that you stay with the machine during this entire process. This is because if something goes wrong, you need to be able to hit the emergency stop button, which again is the red power switch at the front of the machine. If there is a minor problem, you can hit the stop button on the screen, which will allow the machine to be resumed after the problem has been resolved. Once the machine has finished its final cut, it will move back to its central location. Use the yellow movement box to guide the bit to the back of the machine so that we have access to the stock with relative ease. Since we will now be opening up the door to the machine, it is important to remove the key. And also, to ensure power is off to the machine, press the emergency stop button. Find the vacuum that should be located underneath of the computer that you are using. I would suggest vacuuming underneath the lip of the machine so that sawdust doesn't come down on your head once you open the door. Next, vacuum the machine in its entirety. You want to leave the machine in the condition that you received it in so that other people may use it after you. Remove the clamps and/or screws that are holding down your stock. Once your stock is free, you should be able to remove your project using some of the tools located around SparkPlace. You can also use our sandpaper to do a little bit of cleanup work if you have any rough edges. Thank you for watching this video. We hope to see you here in SparkPlace very soon.